What's up, Brigade? You guys picked a great day to be with us here on the Bostonian versus the Book. My name is Matt Peralt. You guys are watching us live on YouTube and Twitter X. We are replayed on Sports Grid Television, and you guys can always get the audio podcast wherever you guys get your audio podcasts. My personal stuff at Sports Talk Matt. Boy, what a morning. Opening line. We will get into it here in a second, but whoa. These are the topic days that we live for here on BVB. What a morning involving Penn, ESPN, TheScoreBet, and a seismic shift in the industry that we predicted 2 years ago. If you've been with us, you know that Dave and I would talk extensively about what Penn National was doing and how we thought the move from Barstool to ESPN most likely was not going to work. Just 2 years into a $2 billion deal, the dissolution of that was announced this morning, and the shockwaves are still being felt across the sports betting industry. It is a BetCris Arizona Thursday. We will talk to Adam Bjorn. Where in the world will Adam be? I don't know. I honestly don't know where he is. Europe, Malta, Michigan, I don't know. We'll check in with him in about 15 minutes, and we'll do college basketball today with Jim Root, three-man weave. We've not checked in with Jim yet. Let's talk about the four fabulous freshmen that are playing in college basketball. Take a look at some national championship futures and other things that Jim likes on the betting board for tonight, tomorrow, and the rest of the weekend. So we'll get to that coming up in about 45 minutes. Stick around for that. We will clearly talk some football about tonight's Thursday night football game, the Raiders and the Broncos. We'll break that down coming up with just the picks, but we begin the program like we do each and every day. It is the opening line presented by Huel. Opening line for us presented by Huel, ESPN Bet, and Penn National. They are dissolving their partnership. More on that here in just 1 second. But Huel, the sponsor of the opening line, you can get 15% off with a minimum purchase of $75 with the code BVB. If you go to Huel.com/BVB. If you haven't checked these guys out yet, I've been talking about them for a little bit now. Both the pre-made and the shakes, the powder. I use the powder, but you can go ahead and use the pre-made. The pre-made shakes are sold at Target now, nationwide. It is a protein shake, yes, but it's more than that. It is a meal. You can make a 200 gram or a 400 gram shake, 40 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals. It is gluten-free, it is vegan, and it tastes tremendous. The shakes come in a variety of pre-made flavors. The powder is either chocolate or vanilla. It's what I take for breakfast 3 or 4 times a week. Throw a banana in there, you throw some blueberries, and you're off and to go. And it's a full breakfast on the fly when we're all so busy. This is a really good way to start your day. Check it out, Huel.com/BVB for 15% off. Minimum purchase of $75. BVB, the code at checkout for Huel. Okay, so if you were, say, under a rock and you knew nothing about sports betting, like you knew absolutely nothing about it, you would say that the biggest brands in the sports world would be the most perfect fits to start a sports gambling operation, right? This has been the theory for, 10 years? Even before PASPA ever became a reality and we repealed the banning of sports betting. And we allowed states after PASPA to go and individually pass their own laws. Even before that, the theory was that like ESPN being the biggest brand ever in sports would make a perfect fit for a variety of things. Do you all remember ESPN the phone? How about ESPN the magazine? How about you old school people? How about ESPN the restaurant? Do you remember that? Because these are all things that at one point in time, the ESPN zone was, of course, everybody wants to go to a sports bar that's ESPN. Everybody wants to go and use a little phone that's, hey, if you subscribe to ESPN the magazine, we're going to give you ESPN the phone. Remember all this, these things that existed? what we continue to see is that people don't understand the behavior of humans, where we're kind of creatures of habit. ESPN is where we go to watch games on our TV sets. ESPN is where we go to read on ESPN.com. The journalism, the reporting, the stories, the breaking news, the trades, all these things, the argumentative shows. Like, these are all things that we have come to appreciate for ESPN. But when we step outside the sports conversation and we go into a business conversation, it hasn't worked. And even though the Barstool Sportsbook ran into the same problems because people want to go read Barstool Sports or follow their content, watch their shows for entertainment purposes, people tend to silo their brands. And when we start to go in different angles and we start to offer different things and expect it to work simply because it's ESPN or Barstool Sports, we are seeing time and time again that it does not work. This morning, we all woke up to the news that ESPN Bet will go away and it will not be anything as of December the 1st. This was done not shockingly. We've been talking about this for a really long time. We've been having this conversation for, I don't know, since the announcement, since it became a reality. $2 billion deal is now kaput. Done. Mutually agree to no longer operate together. It didn't work for a variety of reasons. But I think the biggest of reasons why it didn't work was because the product just wasn't something that people were looking to use. You could talk about DraftKings and FanDuel, and you could talk about their domination of the industry, and it's reality. 85% basically of all bets every day are being placed on two apps, Coke and Pepsi, DraftKings, FanDuel. And then the other 15%, you're trying to find your footing in each individual state, right? It's not just one state, it's multiple states. You're trying to find, can you dominate? Can you compete? Can you take 1 or 2%? And look, in a state like Ohio, 1 or 2% of the overall handle is a massive amount of money. I mean, we're talking about the billions per month here. Last month was $1 billion handle in Ohio. So you take 1% of that, you can make a pretty good living off of that. But it's hard. It's not easy to do. But Penn has brick and mortar. The thing about Penn and Boyd and BetMGM and MGM and Caesars is that these properties have a casino business where sports gambling is not that important. It shouldn't be that important. But Penn has made it very important because they have invested billions and billions of dollars into two different entities that have not worked. The Barstool Sports model didn't work. The ESPN model didn't work. Now they're trying theScore because they bought theScore for $2 billion. And so now they're going to try to shift. But it is an interesting situation to look at how ESPN has now pivoted to DraftKings. This news comes out. Exclusive deal naming DraftKings the official sportsbook and odds provider of ESPN, integrating innovative fan experiences across ESPN platforms, including their service, their streaming service, and others. ESPN tried to leverage their talent to get people to bet, and it didn't work. It didn't work because I don't think people are going to follow Stephen A. Smith's parlays. I mean, I think DraftKings equally is finding out that people aren't betting LeBron James's parlays. People aren't betting, in the beginning they might have done that, but historically, long-term, people want to do what they want to do. They want to bet what they want to bet on. And just because a celebrity, whether it be Tom Brady or whether it be somebody else, decides to tell you, this is my parlay of the day, chances are they're not going to be successful long-term because the bet's going to lose. And the public's going to lose. And thus they're going to feel like, okay, that was fun for once, but I'm not going to go back and do that any more than once. The overall business model, and we talked about this, Dave and I were talking about this for years, about the fact that these books, does it work? Does your product work? If the answer is yes and the product works, what's your price? Do you have competitive pricing? Because that's really a big problem. The menus for DraftKings and FanDuel are gigantic, but generally speaking, they have competitive prices. Then you get into other books that have smaller menus, but they take larger bets. And they're comfortable taking larger bets, and they also won't shut you off and kick you out as fast as the other books will for winning, right? So you welcome certain books, BetCris Arizona, others welcome professional money. They welcome the professional money and the pro money to come in. They want to see that high-level player come in and play at their book. They use that information to help them make a sharper line and make them more efficient in the market. Books like DraftKings and FanDuel don't operate like that. If you win, you're out. Goodbye. ESPN wasn't really victimized by that. ESPN Bet wasn't really looked at. I don't feel like people looked at ESPN Bet as a quick kick out or a book that people weren't looking to use because it was a square book or they didn't want to take action. It was more or less people just didn't use it. Like they just didn't use it. It wasn't top of the mind. The advertising, I don't care how many times you run an ESPN Bet scroll or how many times you have ESPN Bet, the television show, it just doesn't move the needle. And so now DraftKings comes over in a place where it always should have been. Where what does DraftKings do? DraftKings is a gambling company. Okay. They are a sports book and they are a daily fantasy company. They are a gambling company. Gambling companies sponsoring gambling content on ESPN is how the public wants to consume this. I expect DraftKings to do very, very well with ESPN's products. I expect DraftKings to take a big step forward. I think DraftKings stock should be bought today. I'm not a stock expert, but I think it's a very smart move for DraftKings to do this, to take a hold of this and grab. And it should have always been this way. It was this for a while. If you remember, it was this for a while. DraftKings and FanDuel fighting over ESPN as to who was going to get the official sportsbook label and have the exclusivity across all of ESPN's products. So I think this is a good day for DraftKings. I think it's a good day for ESPN, frankly. It's a really bad day for Penn because the history is brutal. I mean, it's brutal. Penn in 2020 partnered with Barstool to pay $163 million for a stake, 36% stake. They then, the next year, bought theScore, mostly in Canada, but also in the United States, for $2 billion. Then in February of 23, they bought the rest of Barstool for $388 million, basically giving David Portnoy $500 million for Barstool Sports. Well, that didn't work. So then they pivoted. In August of 23, they then decided to do the ESPN Bet partnership for $2 billion, and they sold Barstool Sports back to Dave Portnoy for $1. Then today, they announced the end of the partnership. Now, everyone who is on ESPN Bet will now be part of theScore. And all of the 2.5 million email addresses and contact information that was acquired during this partnership, it'll stay with theScore/Penn. Does that matter? How much is a list worth? Back in the beginning part of all of this, if you had a database of email addresses of people that gambled, that list could be sold for 5 figures, even 6 figures, because the books wanted that database. Now, I don't know what that's really worth. I'm not sure anybody is all that excited about it. I'm not sure anybody is jumping up and down and going like, ooh, you have an email list. This is great. I want your email list. But I want to make one thing perfectly clear about the wake of this, because I've seen all sorts of people who are anti-sports betting, anti the industry, and are mad about what's going on. This has nothing to do with the NBA betting scandal. I like June. He's a Boston-based guy. I've met him a couple of different times. He's a good writer, but this is ridiculous. 1 week after ESPN said it had no regrets about its coverage of the Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups gambling scandal, ESPN Bet shuts down. I hope the industry is finally reckoning with something that can't be measured in clicks or ratings, the trust of fans. Hear me when I say this. This has nothing to do with any gambling scandal. It has nothing to do with any FBI investigation. It has nothing to do with the UFC. It has nothing to do with the NBA. It has nothing to do with college football. It has nothing to do with anything on the field. This is a business transaction that has been in the works for a very long time. Anybody paying attention would easily see that the partnership between Penn and ESPN Bet was not going to work. The amount of money they were paying out for what was coming back from a handle and or revenue perspective was not workable. There was an internal fight going on amongst the board of Penn to get out of this deal. They didn't like it. They thought it was a mistake to get into it. They wanted out. Nothing to do with anything negative in the gambling world, in the poker world, in the Chauncey Billups world, in the mafia world. It is completely and totally separate. And anybody trying to conflate the two is being disingenuous at best and lying at worst. You're trying to make the industry look bad. You're trying to point at everything going on. That's not what happened here today, guys. This was a business decision. It had nothing to do with the industry. I don't even think it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's even a knock on the sports betting business in America. I think it's just a bad partnership and a bad deal that Penn entered into that's got nothing to do with anything to do with the sports betting world in America. I think the industry is healthy. The industry is rolling along. This is just a big move in a big moment because ESPN moves the needle, right? It's the biggest brand. Mickey Mouse, it's the biggest brand in the world, the worldwide leader, right? They never should have been a sports book to begin with. They never should have done this, okay? Now this partnership with DraftKings and ESPN, that's where we should be. That's the right move. That's where we should all have been to begin with. If you were surprised that this happened, you were simply not paying attention. Sorry. If you were paying attention to what was going on, and we have been on this show, this is predictable, was predictable, and not shocking in the least. It is shocking that it happened during football season. I'm not going to lie. That it happened during football was like, wait, what? But not that big of a deal in terms of, oh my goodness gracious, it didn't work. No kidding. We told you it when the deal was consummated. We said it. Dave and I said, this is not going to go the way they think it's going to go. 2 years in, $2 billion deal, now kaput. Let's talk. Let's make predictions. Where in the world is our guy? Where in the world is Adam Bjorn? What's up, dude? Where are you?
I'm good. Very boring this weekend. This week, I should say. I'm in Michigan. I'm sure the background could be. But yeah, after a big weekend in California at the Breeders' Cup, and then went to Vegas for one night, over to Phoenix for another 2 nights, I think. And yeah, just in Michigan today.
That's tremendous. I made the call. I was like, he's probably in Michigan. I was like, he's probably just going to be back in Michigan, given the fact. And go for you with the Breeders' Cup.
Fantastic. In the contest, I come 12th and 18th out of about 600 plus. Friday, the one that I liked, come through at, oddly enough, at 35-40 to 1. And it was that price before the even money favorite come out. So I expected to get 16s, 20s. So when that price popped up, so I was second place, but on-site leader in the tournament on Friday. Which also got me an entry into the Pegasus. So I'm already booked for the Pegasus in January. And then destroyed Saturday, lost the first 8 races, was down to literally, I went from like 40,000 Friday down to 16 Saturday by the last race. Pushed all the chips to the middle and found the winner. And ended up 12th and 18th on my 2 entries in it. So 9-1 winner on the last of the day, and had just pushed everything to the middle and ended up having a great weekend.
How about that? There's the roller coaster of gambling, right? Where you're up and then you're down and then you're back up. Was how difficult of a handicap was the weekend overall? Did you find it? Was it a lot of favorites? Was it a lot of dogs? I mean, how did the races in general play out?
Yeah, a lot of favorites, a lot of horses that I liked that just were felt like underlays. I think there was two or three that I had marked at like 10s or 12s, and they come up at fours, fives, or sixes, and I just couldn't come at them. They ended up winning. So had I put my bets in like 2 days before or something, I probably would have had a better one, but at horrible prices. But all in all, I ended up spending 2 days with Roxy Roxburgh in his box, which was just, that was the highlight of the 2 days. Chatting with him for 2 days we've known each other for, it's almost coming up 30 years now. And then all the people that sort of come along and have a chat to him and whatnot. But yeah, and Delmar. Delmar for horse racing wasn't a big crowd, was easy to get around. It was just fantastic day, and the weather was fantastic as well. So perfect San Diego weather. So it ended up 2 great days.
All right. Well, one final question on this. I need to know the outfit for Roxy because he is a gentleman scholar dresser on a Tuesday. What did Roxy Roxborough pull out from an outfit perspective at the Breeders' Cup?
He was suited up both days. I can't remember on the Friday, but I think it was like a cream white on the Saturday. With his hat and everything. He's the best dressed man in any room that we're in where he's present. And that's been the case forever and ever.
Absolutely. All right, tonight, Thursday night football. Let's get into it. The Raiders are on the road up against the Broncos. It's a big number. It's 9.5. Total is 43. The numbers are ugly for the Raiders in this spot off an overtime loss going on the road on Thursday night. Anybody thinking about the dog tonight? Because I kind of think the Raiders might be a little hot here. I like Vegas tonight plus 9.5.
So this would actually, if this was Saturday night, this would be actually a play for Scott and I, because we're looking at 71% of the money overall on Denver. Yet 84% of the master money is on the Raiders at that plus 10, plus 9.5. So, this number, I was almost thinking of breaking my rule with the Thursday night game on the Survivor. I'm on an hour and I need to look at what I have available. And I don't think I actually have the Broncos available in any of my remaining ones. But yeah, this square money is going to be on the Broncos. If I'm going to get involved, I'm only going to be on the Raiders here because the house is going to definitely need that no matter where your house is.
What about the total? Because it feels like the under is going to be a popular play for even the public. I think the under may, given the Broncos defense, they have one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, and Geno Smith has been a disaster for the Raiders at the quarterback position. Anybody daring to bet over tonight?
It's 70% of the money is on the over. Looking at 42, 42.5, 41. So it's at numbers that, probably aren't around now. And then coming back the other way, actually the master money is also, we're looking at 75% on the over. Over 41.5, over 42. And there's a few tickles at under 42.5, which I think it's looking pretty solid 43 right now. So yeah, the money's moved the number to where it is.
Last week was such a unique week because we saw so many of these big favorites go down. Obviously, the Packers lost last week. We saw a loss by the Lions when they were, big 14-point favorites for the Packers, 8.5, 9-point favorites for the Lions. Anybody taking Raider money line? Is that at all possible tonight?
No, there is no Raider money line. It's all Broncos. Just looking at that, like 99% of the money is Broncos money line. And funny, I had a lot of conversations last week, and I'm pretty sure it was with you where we said about the 11-2 favorites. And I said, remember the totals, the over-unders, like watch out for this weekend. Well, sure enough, there it was.
Yeah, that was big. It was good for your Survivor contest, though. You avoided those two teams, and you got 3 entries left and only 1,500 or so left in the Circuit Survivor. So for you, that went well, those two teams going down, right?
Well, it went exceptionally well. And then oddly enough, right before they kicked off, I did a live stream. and tipped the Carolina Panthers money line because I'd actually saw some really sharp money on that when I was going through all the numbers. So, people found it, I caught it, released it, and it ended up a really good day.
All right, we got a couple of interesting numbers that I want to get into for Sunday, and the Bills are laying 9.5 points at the Dolphins. I know this wouldn't be normally a typical game, but it's a divisional game in which the Dolphins almost beat the Bills in Buffalo. Now we have the return trip, and we have a road favorite laying nearly 10 points. Generally speaking, this would be a dog play all day long, but what's the action so far early on Bills Dolphins?
Yeah, well, I remember this game because I took this as a survivor on that Thursday night and was sweating the whole way through it. So it's 96% of the money's on the Bills. However, I did dive into that, and 92% of that 96% is actually teasers. Okay. So there's not really anyone laying the number. A lot of people are using this one for teasers, taking it down to 2.5, 3. It's really a friendless game. Otherwise, there's really not that much interest in it at this point.
Yeah, it would make sense. I mean, it's a big number for delayed on the road. I'm not sure I'd be running to the window either to lay 9.5, but 3.5 or 3, not horrible. I am a Patriot fan, but let's stay in the state of Florida. I'm all over the Bucs. I bet this 2 days ago. My Patriots are going up against a defense that I think are going to give Drake May and company a whole lot of fits. I'm really surprised this has not gone to 3. I thought we would see pro money on the Bucs, but are you guys at 2.5? And if you are, anybody taking the Patriots plus the points?
Yeah, this is actually really well bet game, really well balanced. We're 2.5 slight favorite, 15, 20 is where it's generally sitting. But this is sort of a quintessential 3. At the plus 3, all New England money. At the minus 2.5, all Tampa Bay money. So it seems like they're just looking for that 3. If it comes up, 2.5 favorite 20, you're sort of getting 3 dog 20 around that area anyway. But it looks like the number they're really playing the 2.5 and the 3 against each other strong here. Well balanced, well booked. Lands on 3 while we push one side, lose the other. But this looks like some solid bookmaking in the 2-way action here.
Interesting. Good game to watch. I like Baker at home. Patriots are on a pretty nice win streak here, winning and covering streak. It may come to an end in Tampa. We go to the West. Rams and the 49ers. Big game. First place type game. Rams laying 4.5 as a road favorite against the banged up 49ers. If the injuries weren't there for San Francisco, I think everybody would be on the Niners here, but I'm assuming all the money's on the Rams. Number was 3. Now we're up to 4.5.
Yeah, so it's actually balanced out pretty well now. 61% of the money on the Rams, 67% of the master money on the Rams, but very, very low volume there. But yeah, it's sort of -3, -3.5, -4, and then the +4.5 starting to come back the other way now.
Huh. Are you guys heavy on Rams futures? Do you know? Have you taken a lot of Rams money to win the Super Bowl?
Let me take a quick look. No, they don't. They're not a loser. They're not the biggest of winners either. But yeah, they've gotten bet generally around some +14, 1,500. We had a few runs coming in.
Okay.
I think the biggest price we laid at one point was +2,600. But they're still on the winning side. But we've got some big positions, bad positions on the Bills and a few others. So it's not the best of books, but the Rams are still a small winner right now.
Yeah, I feel like people haven't caught up yet with just how good the Rams are. I mean, I think that's a good price, 13, 14 to 1 on them. I like Seattle a lot as well with 13, 14 to 1 to win the Super Bowl as well. So I think people out West are sleeping on the two teams out here. I think there's a couple of real good contenders. We're focused so much on the Bills and the Chiefs and the typical teams that there's some value there, some other teams. Sunday night, Steelers and the Chargers. We got another dog week for Pittsburgh. They bit me hard. I had the Colts. I laid it. I trusted it. Didn't happen. 6 turnovers. Ugly. Now we have the Steelers coming out west to take on the Chargers, but 3-point favorites. Tomlin on Sunday night is a pretty good bet. We seeing dog action or anyone laying it with Herbert and company?
Oh, dog action. Over 90% of the money's on the Steelers. 97% of the master money's on the Steelers. Looks like they're sort of there's a chunk at sort of the plus 3.5, laying 20, bunch at the 3. But yeah, it's all over the Steelers here.
Yeah, it's not a surprise on that. We'll see. Do you guys think you'd move off of 3? Do you think any chance that you'd wind up going to 2.5?
There's enough money where, today with the numbers and you have the ladders and that, 2.5 is available there. It's really whatever sort of comes up in that closest to pick 'em thing as to whether it's 2.5 or 3 that shows on the main line. Once you get to sort of plus 3 minus 21, we're now teetering where that could be 2.5 and back and forth. But it can only go to 2.5. It's not going to 3.5, that's for sure, because just the weight of money on this, I'm sort of surprised that 2.5 is not the, 2.5 pick 'em right now is not where it sits. But because there's charges are friendless for the most part at the current number.
Before we get to the 3 college games I want to talk about, I always love asking this question because it's always surprising to me. What is the most heavily bet game so far? I know it's only Thursday, but what is getting played the heaviest for Sunday?
It's a toss-up between the Lions and the Commanders. Oh no, the Colts and the Falcons is currently got the most money on it.
The Berlin game. Huh. Are we laying the points here or are we taking the Falcons?
So this is actually another one that would end up as a data play. It's 72% of the money's on the Colts, yet 83% of the master money is on the Falcons at plus 7.5, plus 7, where they lead, 30 to 40 cents. So yeah, generally it's money's on the Colts, but a few people have bought up the Falcons there that have some knowledge.
Interesting. That feels like a teaser game too. No, how is the teaser action on that?
Pretty limited, although there is a bunch on the Colts there, bringing them down to pick and a half. Couple of big actions. So if I look at the numbers, there's probably like 35% of that overall money is teasers on the Colts.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I might tease that as well. All right, to college, BYU, Texas Tech. This is a monster game for Texas Tech. It's 2 top 15 teams, 2 teams that would be in the playoff, and the playoff started today. 10.5. This number is heavy. What's the action? Everyone taking the dog here, or are they willing to lay double digits with Tech at home?
Mainly Tech at home. Most of it's around sort of the 9.5, 10. 66% of the money on Texas Tech, but again, 60% of the BYU money by the Masters, where they're taking 10 and even have bought to a 10.5. So this is sort of showing up where squares are on the favorites, and then you sort of look at the next column on the chart and see where some of the sharper money's going, and they seem to be holding on to BYU at the moment.
I don't know what to do with that. That's a big number. I like BYU, but I'm not sure I like them on the road against Texas Tech. That's going to be an awesome environment in Lubbock here in the Big 12. In the SEC, A&M's on the road against Missouri. A&M, I think, is the best team in the country, so I'm probably going to lay it here with A&M on the road. But what are you seeing from Mizzou hosting A&M on Saturday?
Majority of the people are with you there. Started at the 5. 82% on A&M, 90% of the master money. The master money is at 5.5. And then you start to get the tickles had we had the conversation, day or so ago, it would have been like 95, 96%. But once you get to the 7.5, Missouri's starting to get that little bit of action back, which tempers down the percentages there. But yeah, it's A&M money strong.
Yeah, I think it's A&M big. And then finally, Oregon's on the road against Iowa. I don't know how many points get scored in this football game, but Iowa at home as a dog historically has been a pretty good bet. I don't know if I'll be laying it with the Ducks here, laying 6.5. What's the handle coming at you for Oregon and Iowa?
So this is clearly the top bet game of the week.
Wow.
So far. 61% of the money on Oregon, looking at plus 7, plus 6.5, plus 6. On the Masters chart, there's not a lot of volume, but it's generally on Oregon around that minus 5 now that's come back. So, but yeah, when I was looking through the chart, this was clearly the biggest bet game at this point for Saturday.
Interesting. Big Ten action. All right, back to the NFL for a second because you have 3 picks available in Circa Survivor. What's the strategy once you get to November? This is like the dream, right? You get to November and you got multiple entries alive here for 18 plus million.
Yeah, and that's sort of why I was looking at tonight's game, because when I look at Sundays, I don't have the Colts available. I don't think I have the Lions available either. So I'm just going to be starting to get into realms where I'm going to have to be taking chances. I mean, Panthers against the Saints feels a little scary there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm again, you got Thanksgiving coming up. What are we, like 3 weeks away from that, where you got to play your 2 games in a couple of days? I've got Kansas City there sort of for Christmas if we get to that point. But yeah, this is going to be a tough week, and I think have to go out on a bit of a limb. I don't think I've got the Bills available either. So Seahawks. The Cardinals have.
I like it.
Screwed me on one side, done okay on the other. I have to check though, because again, I think I only have them available in one of them. So while I'd sort of identified last week as an LA week, sort of 3 or 4 weeks in advance, and just pulled the trigger, stuck to it. Yeah. I hadn't really thought much past that week, but having 3 alive, they all won't be in the same team. I can guarantee that. Even looking at this chart, it's even hard going 3 separate teams, because then, the parlay all up, might as well just go and start spending on that as well. So,
right. I mean,
it's a tough one.
It's hard enough to pick 1 and now to pick 3 versus, okay, I'm going to go all in on one team and hope that all 3 advance, or I'm done, or I'm out. Like, strategically speaking, it's a debate, is it not, to either spread it out or just to go all in on one?
Well, yeah, I've never gone all in one. Even when I have the 10, in the first week, it's maybe 6 or 7 on a team and then spread out the others, which, kind of cost me the first week, where I lost a couple where lots of others, got all 10 through that first week. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's the Buccaneers, maybe it's, a few of these ones that, yeah.
I don't mind the Bucs, but 2.5 point home favorite against a Patriot team that's red hot is a tough. That's to put your. I
think whatever's chosen this week will definitely have me on edge all day Sunday, especially spread across a few. Even the Chargers last week, that first half, it's like they just don't make it easy, and then the Rams just sailed through and did make it. I think the Rams was probably the easiest pick I've had all season.
Yeah.
But yeah, crunch time, halfway through the season, got a couple of double week picks to get through, out the other side. So we've got 11 more winners have to find to get through this, because I fully expect this to be chopped up. Multiple will get through to week 20, and yeah, just hope to be one of them.
Yep, right. Just got 1 or 2 of those available for you. When do you think are you going to be able to do a live stream? If folks want to follow when you find out guys finally do make the circuit selection, when do you think you'll be doing it?
All right. Well, unless do you have the game time of Nebraska?
The Huskers are reeling at the moment after what happened with Matt Rule losing again. Let's see. When does Nebraska play? I think the Huskers play.
So they look like they're 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep.
So they're playing UCLA, so they're out that side. So it'll be regular time, 4 Eastern, 7 Pacific. We'll get it on before the game, and Scott's mood changes for the worse. So, definitely on time this week.
He must have been a angry Husker on Saturday after watching USC go in there and beat the Huskers. 29 consecutive losses to ranked teams for Nebraska, which is crazy. I stopped covering the Huskers in 2011. Their last win over a ranked opponent was 2014. It's a long time ago. And they have 2 road games left. They got to go to UCLA this week, and then they play at Penn State next week, and then the home game on Black Friday against Iowa. So might be kind of a thud ending for the Huskers.
And not to date myself, but I remember when I first got into college football, they were the beast. I mean, they were huge. So, yeah.
90s were a long time ago for Husker fans. That was in the early 90s. Adam, good stuff, man. Best of luck this weekend. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. We'll catch up next week. All right.
All right. Cheers, Matt. Thanks.
One and only Adam Bjorn at Adam Bjorn2 to go ahead and follow him on his socials as he will go through everything happening with that. I mean, having 3 teams available for the Survivor contest for $18+ million is quite cool. That's very fun. Next week, I'll have you guys. I saw in the chat a lot of you guys were asking questions. Next week, I'll let you guys send me questions for games you want Adam to address. How we have done it up to this point is that I have been the one to pick the games, but I keep on seeing you guys in the chat wanting to know information on different games that are kind of like stranger games that aren't all that popular. So I'll let you guys go ahead and ask Adam some questions coming up next week, because I think that'll be fun for you guys to have that. So, the Bills, Butchie, really? Okay. So the Bills, everybody's on. All right. Butchie says the Bills are going to be a very, very hot selection. The Dolphins are going to be a need for the books. I think that's probably true. I mean, it's 9.5. You have Mike McDaniel, who is just a dead man walking in a lot of ways in terms of a coach, and he most likely is out at the end of the year. Tua is most likely gone. There is a lot of, the rumor mills about Tua and Kyler Murray swapping teams is pretty funny. Like, there's a lot of people out there saying, like, why don't the Dolphins and the Cardinals just swap quarterbacks? Kyler Murray now is on the IR. He's out for at least 4 games, and I don't believe Kyler Murray will ever play again for the Cardinals. I'd be very surprised if Kyler Murray takes a snap again in Arizona. I think they are residing to the fact that they're going to have Jacoby Brissett as their starting quarterback going forward, and going on the road to Seattle this coming weekend. That just feels like a teaser special to me at 6.5. Jacoby Brissett beating the Cowboys on the road last week. Again, another really impressive performance by Jacoby Brissett, and the defense for the Cardinals is pretty good. That's a difficult game to bet. Why? Mike McDonald's not great at home. He's a great bet on the road. He is not a great bet at home. Am I laying 6.5 points with Seattle? Not interested in that. Laying 0.5 point? Okay. I'm more inclined to listen to that, but that seems to be like a difficult situation to go ahead and jump into. Before we talk some college basketball, let's make a couple of picks for tonight, because Thursday night football. All right, time for just the picks, being presented by the Prop Bet cheat sheet, coming to you from Betting Pros. If you guys haven't checked it out, you can tonight to check out the Prop Bet cheat sheet for all their picks on Thursday night football. If you guys go to the App Store, you can download the Betting Pros app, or you can go to bettingpros.com to check out, bettingpros.com/props to check out the Prop Bet cheat sheet. You can compare lines with daily NFL projections. You have positive EV plays, you have hit rates and other things. All the props are ranked from 1 star to 5 stars with the Prop Bet cheat sheet on the Betting Pros app, or go to bettingpros.com/props to go and check it out. For tonight on Thursday night football, I just told Adam what I'm doing. It looks like it's going to be the pro side tonight. I'm taking the points. All the numbers are screaming to take the Broncos, but I think this number is inflated. This is a divisional game, and these two teams generally play tight football games. I know it's Geno Smith. I know it's this defense for the Broncos, which has the best pass rush in football. But I do think that Brock Bowers' return for the Raiders is huge news. I do think the Raiders are going to score at least 21 points tonight, if not 24 points tonight. And I just don't think that Bo Nix is going to go and hang 40 on this Raiders defense. I know the Raiders defense is not good. I think the Broncos win, but I think it's a 7-point win, and the back door very well might be open on this. So I'm taking 9.5 with the Raiders, but I'm hedging a touch. I'm going to try to thread the needle. I'm going with a teaser as well. There is 8.5s and 9.5s in the market. You can find an 8.5. I found it last night. I'm pulling the Broncos down to 2.5 and laying it with the Broncos. On the other side of the teaser, I'm taking the Lions, as we just heard from Adam Bjorn, taking the Lions on the road against Washington. I'm going to pull them down to below 3, from 9 to 2, or from 8 to 2, depending on the book. I'm pulling it down and taking the Lions. So that's how I'm playing it. Broncos -2.5 and the Lions -2. two. One prop bet for tonight that I want to get into that I think is worth firing on. It is from the prop bet cheat sheet. I want J.K. Dobbins over 76.5 rushing and receiving yards tonight. This defense, as I've talked about with the Raiders, not great. And I think J.K. Dobbins, who's had a good season against bad defenses, against the Cowboys, he had a big game. Against the Bengals, he had a big game. I would say the Raiders defense is somewhere in that category, not as bad, but kind of in the same category. I think they'll feed the rock to J.K. Dobbins. I also think the screen game will be big with Bo Nix and company. Like J.K. Dobbins to go over 76.5 rushing and receiving yards. He's hit this in 4 of his last 5 games. And I think against bad defenses, this is a guy where the offense will lean on J.K. Dobbins tonight to pick up some yardage here, both rushing and receiving, over 76.5 rushing and receiving. College basketball is back. I hit my first bet last night, finally, going back to an old adage, the Creighton basketball first half overs against South Dakota last night. That came in. Let's talk some basketball with our guy, Jim Root, 3-Man Weave, joining us here on BVB. What's up, dude? Good to see you. It's been a minute. What's going on?
Man, just getting in the mix here with the season starting. They just like bury us in 100 games on the first night. And catching up a little bit over Tuesday and Wednesday, and then even tomorrow, Thursday slate's a little light. Tomorrow, Friday is good. Tonight, Thursday slate's a little light, but we're getting into it slowly but surely, and hopefully the games will get better and better as well.
So in the transfer portal / NIL world, I do find it interesting that all the energy is around these 4 freshmen that have come into college basketball. And I feel like the public is still trying to figure out who they are, what teams they're on, and what they're going to be capable of doing this season. I know it's early, but how have you seen the impact of these youngsters coming in and performing already here in college basketball?
Yeah, I think we had a couple weak freshman classes leading up to last year, and then we had an awesome one. And this year is just as good. Like, there are legitimate stars atop the class, and then I think really good depth too. But, you know, the 4 you're referring to, Darren Peterson of Kansas, Cam Boozer of Duke, Koa Pete of Arizona, and AJ DeBansa of BYU. I mean, all those guys made huge impressions in their debuts. Obviously, Pete doing it against the reigning national champions on national TV on opening night, that's as good as you can do it, and as big a stage as you can have it. But I think we'll see the same thing out of Darren Peterson tomorrow night, going to North Carolina. He's going to have a huge role in the outcome of that game. And he's as talented as anybody. He could go into an ACC road environment in his second collegiate game and easily be the best player on the floor. So I think people will be very impressed by the top line talent. I think Boozer's the best of the bunch, and he didn't really score it that well against Texas, but he impacted the game quite a bit outside of that. And I think people are just going to be blown away by this group. And, you know, when Tennessee gets on national TV and Nate Ament is putting up stats for them as well, there's a lot of really good players atop the class. And then as you go further and further down, plenty of supplemental talent in the class as well.
So I mentioned that I got the bet right last night with Creighton in the first half over for them against South Dakota. That snapped a 3-game betting losing streak to start college basketball for me, because I had Florida and I didn't like what I saw out of the Gators in their opener. I know we talked about Pete and how dominant he was for Arizona, but what's your outlook? I feel like they don't have the same killer guards that they had last year when they won the national championship. And I feel like for Todd Golden, he kind of needs that type of player. And granted, you know, those guys are in the NBA right now for a reason, but what'd you make of Florida's loss to Arizona?
Yeah, I think for Florida, the way the team is structured, the really good group of bigs raise the floor, but to access the high ceiling, they need the guards. They need the shot making that they had last year. And I think there's some hope that Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland can get there as they progress throughout this season and getting comfortable in that system. But there's no Walter Clayton here. There's no like killer defensively like Elijah Martin was last year. So it was a tough opener for Florida trying to go through with their new guards. And you'd think against a sort of younger team in Arizona, it might not look as kind of wonky as it did. But I will say Arizona might be like the only team with a bigger, more powerful front line than Florida. I mean, they played 6'7", 230-pound Avin Karchenko like 35 minutes at the 3. And then they also had Pete, Owaka, and Krivas hammering down in the paint. You know, Arizona only took 5 threes in that game. It told you where they thought they could get their their points, and that was at the rim against a really good defensive interior from Florida. So I think Florida will look just fine when they play teams that aren't that huge inside, but maybe the rare matchups where it's going to be more of a guards game, like Tennessee's got a front court to compete with them, maybe one or two others in the SEC, Kentucky, if Quaintance gets healthy. That's when Florida may not quite look as immortal as they did last year. Now tonight, when they're 41.5-point favorites against North Florida, I pity the Ospreys getting the angry Gators in the home opener with the banner going up. But going forward, I think Florida is going to have a little tougher time with those big front lines.
So the late game here in Vegas of that 2-game slate was BYU hosting Villanova, and it's Kevin Willard going to Nova, looking to change what happened. I was fading Nova like crazy last year. Cal Neptune was not a good coach for Villanova, but they have a competent coach now. I just thought with all the new faces that Nova's culture wouldn't be able to translate and keep that game close. What happened to BYU in the second half of that game? Because I to play early.
Yeah, that one, I was surprised it crept up to double digits, but BYU's got some figuring out to do on offense. They were just firing on all cylinders to end last year. I mean, they looked so good, like Big 12 tournament, NCAA tournament against Wisconsin. I mean, they had a nice offensive performance against Alabama. Unfortunately, the Tide just made like 33s. Not really much you can do about that. But they've got to figure out how to integrate Debansa and Rob Wright, the point guard that transferred in from Baylor, guys that are probably better with the ball in their hands. And then you still got to make sure Richie Saunders gets his shots. So I'm curious to monitor their shot profile. They took a lot of twos against Villanova and struggled to finish at the rim, only 50% as a team at the rim. And Villanova doesn't really have shot blocking. So that was a little bit concerning to me. I think there's going to be some sorting out of the pecking order of like, all right, when is it Rob Wright's turn to go create? When is it just a Debansa phase of the game where he's going to, mid-post ISO or get the ball at the elbow and shoot over the top of his defender? When are they going to play more in transition and get a lot of shots that way? I think there's going to be an adjustment period for them, but the ceiling is still really, really high for BYU. It's just not quite clicking yet for all the pieces they have that like to share the ball.
I know it's early, but have you been surprised? Anybody jump off the page early to start? Any victory that you were really surprised that somebody got early in the season so far?
That's a good question. Yeah, we haven't had too many like really big games. I will say that Texas Tech, with 4 of their best 6 players out, still winning by almost 40 against Lindenwood, was a little bit of a standout performance. Like Christian Anderson, there was talk of can he make the leap to be the point guard and the guy on the perimeter for them. Well, he answered the bell really, really well for them. And I've been high on the Red Raiders. I actually picked them to win the national title at Basket Under Review. So okay. I'm optimistic and excited to see that Anderson looked that good. They got to get everybody else healthy now. I think Toppin's supposed to miss 2 or 3 weeks with a foot injury. So they need to get him back. I thought Illinois looked incredible in their opener. It's just against inferior competition. But again, they're a little shorthanded. No Andrei Stojakovic, no Mihailo Petrovic, one of the foreign imports that they've got there. And they look like a team with a really high ceiling that was ranked top 10 analytically everywhere. Ken Pom, Bart Torvik, Evan Mia. And perhaps they really are that good. I think humans weren't quite as high, but computers were high on them. So that's somebody I'm looking at. Now, we got to get a couple more of these big showdowns Friday and Saturday where we'll see some of the good teams where the rubber meets the road for them.
How about UNLV losing to UT Martin? I know they were without 5 players due to injury, but if you're Josh Pastner and you're coming in, you're familiar with this market. You know what the Rebel fans are looking for. You can't be losing to UT Martin as 17-point favorites, right?
Yeah, that's not good. It might have been 2 years ago they lost at home to Southern in their season opener, and it's like that didn't feel good for Kevin Kruger. And yeah, like you said, they were missing some guys, but they still got Dre Gibbs Longhorns, an Illinois transfer. Kamani Hamilton was part of a top 75-ish team at High Point. Like that's not a roster, even the top 7 that they played, that should be losing to UT Martin. And Martin's kind of its own curiosity in itself. Like everybody on the roster is from Europe. Like they basically don't have a single American player. But it still was a very underwhelming start for Pastner. And if it doesn't see an uptick, even with the lineup that they have, getting healthy would certainly help. But it's going to be a rough opening season for Pastner if they can't get sorted out. That is a bad loss to start the year.
Yeah, his post-game press conference wasn't good either, talking about he did not recognize the team that was on the floor in the second half. He couldn't believe what they were doing because they hadn't coached anything. So the players clearly not listening to the coaching staff and executing the game plan out of halftime. So they got Chattanooga coming up here in a couple of days, a team that won the NIT last year. So that is not good for UNLV coming up here in a couple of days. I mentioned I'm a Creighton guy. How do you see the Big East, and how do you see the Creighton Blue Jays factoring into the Big East this year? Because it feels like, I don't know if I have there's a number one team in the Big East. It feels like there's a lot of shuffling to be done coming up here this season.
Yeah, I'm buying the top two being pretty separate. The UConn, St. John's, I think they're both top 10 teams and going to really separate themselves from the pack. I think on one of our podcasts, I said that they would lose a combined 3 games to the rest of the Big East to not counting their head-to-head matchups. And that might have been a little rich, but somebody called me on it in my Twitter DMs, and I decided to make the bet because, I got to put my money where my mouth is on that. But beyond that, Creighton has the chance to be third. I think everybody kind of picked them there a little bit by default, but I wouldn't say they looked overly sharp last night. Defensively still concerning on that end. You bring in a couple guys from Iowa that couldn't defend, and lo and behold, they can't really defend at Creighton either. But Marquette, this bastion of continuity that didn't take a single transfer out of the portal. We'll see what Providence ends up being. Their debut was underwhelming, I would say. Villanova's going to be in that mix. Georgetown, I think a lot of their fans are very hyped for this coming season, and they had a great exhibition win over Kentucky, but their season opener was not overly sharp either. I could see this being another 3-bid Big East like it was 2 years ago. Wow. I just don't think the depth is there in the bottom. Seton Hall, not great. I don't think Butler's very good, even though they won by 30 in their opener. So from 3 on down, it's a little bit of a mess right now. And I'm curious who emerges from there as well.
Very cool. Jim, I know you have a new outfit, so tell people where they can find your stuff, what's going on, what's the site, tell everybody what's going on with you for content this season.
Yeah, we're going to be pumping out a lot at Basket Under Review. That is Trilly Donovan's new website. For those that are in the college basketball Twitter sphere, you might recognize that name. It's the pen name of a mysterious as yet unmasked person in the college basketball world who's got all kinds of scoops. He's got a Discord that we participate in. We talk betting every single day in there. Just people ask questions about a game they're thinking about. We give our thoughts on it. Then there's also a website with a ton of great writers. I've got a podcast over there called Stats with Will and Jim. So we just kind of go through college basketball based on the numbers. That's available for free. You don't have to subscribe to that. But then, within behind the paywall, you get the Discord, the website, all kinds of great stuff. Highly encourage people checking that out. I think it's an awesome college hoops community. There's always something to talk about, somebody to talk to. So highly, highly recommend.
Is 3-Man Weave still going on, or is that changing for you?
We still got the podcast. The website's more or less defunct now, I guess. Okay. Sadly, we're still paying the internet fees to keep the URL, but not a lot of new content going up there. That'll be coming on Basket Under Review. But the podcast, 3-Man Weave, still check that out. Also free. We'll come pretty much every week on Friday mornings talking about what we saw and what to look ahead for on Saturdays.
Good stuff, my man. We'll catch up down the road. A lot of college basketball talk coming down soon. Appreciate your time.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
That is Jim Root, as we've talked to him throughout the history of this program, talking college basketball. Great to get him on the program. If you guys are with us live, we're going to head on over into bonus time here in just 1 second. If you guys are on the replay crew, thank you for watching. We are back tomorrow with a Fight Song Friday. Thanks to Jim Root and to Adam Bjorn. If you missed any part of the program, you can always head on over to our YouTube channel at Boston versus the Book to go and check it and catch up on anything. Audio podcasts, obviously, always available wherever you guys get your audio podcasts. But if you guys are with us live, don't move. Bonus time starts now. Well, that was a fast hour. My gosh, that flew. That was fun. Interesting to hear Jim talk about the Big East a little bit. 3 losses. That's it for both UConn and St. John's. Huh. I don't know, because Mac owns UConn. So the Creighton person in me says hold on a second. So one of those 3 losses is going to be when UConn goes to Omaha, right? Because that always happens. McDermott has been dominant against UConn and the little elf that is the coach of UConn. Hurley's going to have a good team. There's no debating. So is Pitino. They're going to be good. They're going to be Final Four contending, championship contending teams. But it's the Big East. You tend to always get beat. Like, there's always upsets. It's college basketball. It's college basketball. Yes, UConn wins titles because Hurley is a very good coach. But against Coach McDermott, Mac has his number. Mac has had his number ever since he became the head coach of UConn. So that's a split. That's a one. So like there's one loss. And then we're saying that nobody else is losing. Only two more games of the other 60 games that UConn and St. John's will play. That's only going to, he said in the Big East. So there's 18 games, right? Or is it 20 games? Forget what they play 18 games or 20 games. I think they play 20. No, they play 18 games, 18 conference games. So of the other, 35 games in conference, they're losing 2. We're going 33-2 outside of that one loss to Creighton. Okay. That's an aggressive play. I'll say that, just given the nature of the Big East and given the nature of college basketball and how we see so many things. Oh, K-Bro's got a St. John's future, 17-1 to win it all. I made a decision this year. So I have been a believer in building portfolios for a while. It's worked out. Some years it works out, other years it does not. It's worked different sports, different times, but generally speaking, it's worked out okay for me just from a money-making perspective, having big tickets by betting teams early. College basketball, I did it a lot. Last couple of years, I did that a lot. But last year, I decided to track the prices that I bought versus the prices that were available for the same teams right before the bracket. And generally speaking, the odds were either as good or just slightly better to take that same bet in March versus November. And so unless there is a mispriced future, and maybe St. John's at 17-1, maybe that is a mispriced future. So maybe K-Bro, that's a good bet. But I looked at it for about a week and I decided, you know what? I'm not going to do that this year. I'm going to wait and I'm going to get involved later. Like I just made my first bet for the Super Bowl on Seattle. I just took 14-1 on Seattle. I have no other tickets on anybody to win at all in the NFL. And I will most likely buy a Rams ticket and I will most likely buy a Bills ticket. I'll at some point I'll get involved with other teams, but I only have that one ticket. And I'm kind of taking the same philosophy in college basketball. I want to wait till like January. I want to see what these teams look like. I want to see what the conference schedule looks like and how these teams are performing as we head towards March, because I do think I'm going to be able to get maybe not as good, but close to a similar price. And so I understand the idea of getting involved early if you think the number is going to move, but like, what will St. John's price be going into the NCAA tournament? If they have a dominant year and if they go 17-1 in the Big East, well then, yeah, most likely you're going to see like a 4-1 or a 5-1 ticket on St. John's, and you're going to love that 17-1 ticket. But we don't know that's going to happen, right? So like, rather than having my money tied up and rather than getting a bad price and a big injury, something may happen. I'm going to take a different philosophy this season than I have in other seasons when it comes to the futures market in college basketball. I want to watch, right? And I'm glad that I did, because I was pretty high on Florida going into that game against Arizona. Smoked. Smoked on that. So that was not good. Arizona was never in doubt. They had that game in control. Pete was incredible. So first game for a freshman in college basketball, who knows what the kid's going to look like? He was dominant for Arizona. So that was big. AJ playing for BYU, he was the best player on the floor, but the other players around BYU did not perform defensively the way I thought they were going to. And then once Nova started hitting their threes in the second half, that changed everything. I mean, that game got competitive. It was a 5-point win for BYU, but that game got competitive very quickly here in Vegas. And it was surprising. It was like, wait a minute, BYU 9, 10, 10.5 point favorites at close. I had 8.5. I had great CLV in that game. Didn't matter. Never came close. BYU was never close to covering that number. And while they have a really high ceiling and they're going to be very competitive, and I like BYU long-term a lot, in that opener, Kevin Willard did a really good job, and his adjustments with a brand new basketball team at halftime were great. He had his guys locked in, and then they started hitting threes. So yeah, look, the Peterson kid for KU, he did it against a cupcake, but damn, he looked good. I'm not going to debate. Doug Gottlieb compared him to Kobe. Said, I haven't seen a guy this smooth at that size since Kobe. So is Daryl Peterson Kobe 2.0? I don't know if I'm going that far, but like, yeah, he's going to be an issue, but let's see what he does against real competition. Okay. Like let's see. Okay. Let's see it, how it all kind of plays out and how it all goes. Vinny saying, I remember when that was Dave's advice. Most of the time it's better to wait on the future. In college basketball, that is at least what I have learned in the last 2 years. I've learned that to be correct. I think that's true. So Gottlieb's a boob. It's a word for him. Yeah, it's a word for him. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm comparing anybody to Kobe Bryant, but Gottlieb played and coaches at a high level. So, I mean, his opinion carries some weight, more weight than mine in terms of talent and performance, but I'm not calling Daryl Peterson very well might be, a lottery pick, incredible top 5 player entering the league. He looks the part, but again, it was at Fog Allen against a cupcake team. Let's see what happens once KU gets into some more difficult games. And that's the beautiful thing about college basketball, is that we do get to see some pretty high profile. Kansas always schedules difficult matchups, and those games are all still in, we're pre-Thanksgiving, right? Where most people around the country haven't started to pay attention yet to college basketball. They're shocked that it actually started. They're like, oh shoot, college basketball's back. The bigger games will get going, obviously, with Maui, the Maui Invitational, and all these games that are all still to come here for college basketball, these pre-conference tournaments that'll all happen across the country. We will see these guys play at high level. I mean, Arizona playing here against Florida in Vegas was the first really big marquee matchup, and the Koa Pete kid was unbelievable. He was dominant. So more of that, and then we'll get into later. So from a college basketball standpoint, I'm not going to do it. Brendan, I watched IU last night because of obviously D-Rock being the coach of Indiana. Again, it's a SWAC team, right? That was Alabama A&M or Alabama's, one of those teams. Blowout. Okay, you're supposed to blow them out. I mean, that was how many easy layups did Indiana have in the first half of that game? So I learned nothing. I learned nothing about Indiana yesterday. So that's the problem. Nothing. So I hope IU is good. I want to bet on D-Rock. I want to be involved with Indiana. Absolutely. I mean, Tucker DeVries, how many years has he been playing in college basketball? I mean, Tucker DeVries played 2 years at Drake, 1 year at West Virginia, and now ending at Indiana. I mean, my God, that's a crazy career. Drake in the Valley, Big 12 with West Virginia, and now Indiana. Everybody in Morgantown hates the kid. They think he's a traitor. They hate his dad too, because of what his dad did going to Indiana, but I can't blame either one of them getting a chance to go play in Bloomington. It's one of my bucket list things. If the Creighton Blue Jays ever schedule Indiana, which I think could happen, I think I will be present. I would pray for it next year. It would be so neat to see Coach Mack, coach of Creighton, up against Indiana in Bloomington. To watch that matchup would be, I would have to be present for that. Like if it ever went down like that, I would have to be there. But it's not, I don't believe it's on the schedule in the future, but that would be a lot of fun to see how it all kind of plays out. So, look, we're going to learn a lot about college basketball in the next 2 weeks. Let me look, because Jim was talking about games tomorrow. There's not really a lot of games tonight, but he said there's a couple games. I haven't even looked at the schedule, to be honest, for college basketball, because I've been betting too much college football. Let's see. Yeah, there's not a lot tonight. Iowa State's got Grambling. Merrimack from my Andover, Mass, is taking on Auburn. My friend's son is a freshman on the Auburn team, so I'll probably pay attention to Merrimack and Auburn a bit for tonight. Tomorrow night on a Friday, we have, again, a lot of cupcakes. Nothing really all that exciting. I mean, UCLA hosts Pepperdine. Arizona's got Utah Tech at home. Sam Houston's at Texas Tech. Yeah, more showcase games. Oh, Kansas, North Carolina. Okay, there's your marquee game. Kansas, North Carolina. That's a hell of a game. Okay, there you go. At the Dean Dome. Carolina home favorites over KU. So tomorrow night, that's a great game. Kansas, UNC. Looking for a Friday night basketball game? There's your Friday night basketball game. Kansas at North Carolina. And then Alabama, St. John's. Okay, now we're talking. At MSG. There Saturday, Alabama, St. John's. That's a hell of a game. St. John's laying 6.5. God, that stinks. That game's going to get buried. That game's going to get absolutely buried because of college football. That's a noon Eastern time kick on Fox Sports, or tip on Fox Sports 1 with St. John's and Alabama. What a basketball game. Holy shit. That's awesome. That sucks. That's too bad, man. I'm bummed out that that's on a college football Saturday. As a college basketball fan, you got to have that on a screen. You got to have that somewhere. Oh, I'm psyched to watch that. I love that college basketball's back. It's so fun. What else on Saturday? Let's see. Anything else? BYU's hosting Holy Cross. Oklahoma Gonzaga is not awful. That's your late night, 7:30 Pacific time, 10:30 Eastern time game. So if you need a get right spot game to bet, there's OU Gonzaga. With Gonzaga at home laying 10.5 to Oklahoma. But so, all right. So you have a game Friday with Kansas, North Carolina, and a game Saturday with Alabama and St. John's. Okay. Yeah, that's a terrible schedule. I will agree. But here's the thing. Nobody in New York gives a shit about college football. So, like, it sucks nationally. I would agree. But locally, they don't give a shit. Locally, I mean, they're St. John's fans are college basketball fans, and they don't know what football is. They're like, what's football? Like, what's that? They don't really care. So I understand why they put it there. That'll be a sellout. They'll have a sellout crowd for sure coming up for that game coming up on Saturday. So that's fun. That's fun. So, all right, tonight's going to be good. We'll recap it all tomorrow. Obviously, on a Fight Song Friday tomorrow, we'll get into everything. Newbie's coming on the program tomorrow. We'll get into a variety of things with him about college football and college basketball and the NFL coming up here as well on that. I want to do one quick thing because we didn't have time to do it. I want to just touch on two things that happened last night. So these are two just NBA stories that I found to be interesting. So OKC lost last night and the Nets won. So every team in the NBA now has at least one win, and every team in the NBA has at least one loss. The Trailblazers beat the Thunder last night. How the hell did that happen? But okay, we're now into the wonky season for the NBA where crazy things are going to happen. So you got that. And then secondly, in the NHL, for the first time since conferences were developed in 1974, the entire East, the entire Eastern Conference is either at 500 or over 500 in the NHL. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure that is even like remotely significant. I'm not sure it matters. I just thought it was kind of cool that everybody is over 500 or at 500. The Panthers are 6-6-1. The team that almost blew that stat, the defending champs, who are 6-6-1. They have 13 points. They have the fewest points of anybody in the Eastern Conference. You don't think that's going to continue with Barkov coming? I guess he's out for the year, but you're going to have Kachuk back at some point. Like, they're going to get healthy. But 13 games, 6 wins, 6 losses, 1 tie for the Florida Panthers. They're behind like even the Sabres, who are 4-4-1. They've got 14 points. The Rangers are 6-6-2. They've got 14 points. The leader is the Montreal Canadiens at 9-3-1. They've got 19 points. But that's history. We've never seen this before, this late in the year, to have this many teams at 500 or better. So that's pretty fun, to see how it's going to wind up going. The West, the Calgary Flames are 4-9-2. The Sharks are 5-6-3. The Canucks are 7-8. The Blues are 4-8-2. The Wild are 5-6-3. The Predators are 5-6-4. There are 6 teams in the West that are under 500. So right now, the energy and the power of the NHL, Eastern Conference. It's all in the Eastern Conference. So, guys, my favorite thing about today, how about those 2 guests? Favorite thing about today, well, one, this was the typical type of show for us here on BVB. One, the ESPN Bet story. If you did not see me talk about ESPN Bet going away, scroll back, watch it on the replay on our YouTube channel at Boston versus the Book, or go listen to the audio podcast. We broke it down quite aggressively about what it means for the industry. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm not surprised by it. We've been paying attention to this. When the deal was consummated, I thought it was going to go south pretty quickly. I think it was the right move for Penn to punt on it. It was a 10-year deal, and through 2 years, it was not going to get better. It was only going to get worse. They're throwing good money after bad. There's no need to do that. You have TheScoreBet, which you already spent $2 billion on. Nobody in America is going to use TheScoreBet. The Score is huge in Canada. All right. The Score as a brand, the Score, it's a big deal in Canada. I'm not sure how many people in Canada want to use TheScoreBet because it feels very similar to the ESPN branding problem, but you have that already, so you can bring it here. And if your numbers are competitive, people will use you. The problem with Penn is that their numbers aren't competitive. And until they figure that out, until they realize that people want the best prices, if you get the best prices and the best line and you're competitive, if you're willing to take big bets and take action and be a sportsbook, not a marketing company, but be a sportsbook, people will then use you. But until then, you're a marketing company, and Penn mostly has used their sports betting properties to help grow their casino business, which I don't blame them because that's where they make their money. That's their brick and mortar, their casinos, their iGaming, all that stuff is all big. That's where they make their money. This stuff is not that important to them. They wanted customers for their gaming. Sports betting got them more customers, so they were cool with it. And now they get to keep the 2.5 million email addresses that they got through the Barstool ESPN integrations. Is that worth the money they spent? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it, but I don't mind what Penn did today. I don't think that was a bad idea. I also equally think it was brilliant for ESPN to get out of the bookmaking business in general and go and sell it to DraftKings, because that should have been the case all along. That's what it was back in the beginning. When sports gambling went legal, ESPN was sponsored by DraftKings for all their betting content. It should stay that way. Okay. That should, one's in Bristol, Connecticut. The other was in Boston. It's a smart move. It's the right partnership. It should have always been that way. It should never have done. And what happened should never have happened, because they hurt the ESPN brand by having Stephen A. Smith and Mike Greenberg and these different people doing parlays and pimping the book. They made a mistake, okay? I think you look back on it, it was a mistake. I give Pat McAfee a ton of credit, because when Pat went to ESPN, he said, I'm not doing that. I'm getting out of the sports betting stuff. It's not what I do, okay? I'm a talk show host. I'm a personality. We talk gambling on Hammer Down with the guys that do it off my platform, off ESPN, on my own personal platform. That's the way to do it. Gump and Company, that's what they want to talk about. Let them go and do that. It works. It's brilliant. Okay. ESPN should always have just been sponsored by DraftKings. Stay in your lane. Moral of the story is stay in your lane. Didn't work with Barstool. Didn't work with ESPN. With the Score, I don't know if it'll work or not, but it won't be as pressure packed to work for Penn as it did. So that conversation was great. If you missed any part of that opening line, go check it out. Thank you to Adam Bjorn for coming in here, breaking down the games. He missed his breakdown of week 10 in the NFL and week 9 in college. Go check it out. Sorry, week 11 in college, week 10 in the NFL. Go check it out, because some interesting nuggets about where the pro money is coming in particular tonight with the Raiders on the road at the Broncos, and good stuff with Jim Root. from Under the Basket coming in, being a part of it. 3-man weave, talking all about college basketball and where we are at the start of the college basketball season. You missed any part of it, go back. Favorite thing about today, the show today, you guys in the brigade, thank you for being here. Tomorrow, Fight Song Friday, Newbie will be on the program. We're trying to get Ben Volen from the Boston Globe to come in and preview the Patriots and the Bucks. That's going to be interesting. Ben and I have had some fun conversations over the years. So if he does join us tomorrow, Ben Volen of the Boston Globe might also be on the show to talk about everything happening with the Patriots on the road against Tampa. So stay tuned for that conversation. Newbie for sure. Fight Song Friday as well. 1 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow for a Fight Song Friday episode of the Bostonian versus the Book.